Hi, my name is Susan Graham and I am a flutist and private instructor in New Jersey. And this is video number 2 in my tutorial series on the Bach Eb Sonata for flute. If you haven't watched video number 1, I would encourage you to do that now and then come meet me back here for video number 2. Today we will be talking about the section that starts at rehearsal letter A, or measure 9. I like to think of measures 9 through 11 as sort of our cast of characters. These are the tools that you are going to need for the rest of the movement. Another thing to be very cautious of is the tempo of this piece. It is marked allegro moderato, emphasis on moderato. Just because you can play it fast does not mean that you should. I would think that the metronome marking should probably be somewhere between 76 and 80. In measure 9, you want to make sure that you are balancing the sound between the first note, the B flat, and the G on the and of 1. The B flat is the downbeat note, and therefore it's more important. I know sometimes it can be hard to have a higher note sound softer, and so this is a good thing for you to be working on, like this. So notice that my G was a lot softer than my B flat. On B2, we have a very interesting little phrase, 2 30-second notes and a 16th note. I like to think of that little rhythm as almost like a little paintbrush stroke. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. So it'll sound like this. I'll do that again. So again, da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da. It's very helpful if you make the F 16th note a little bit on the short side and then land yourself right down on that E flat. Also make sure that you are making it a very precise rhythm. 2 30-second notes and a 16th note, not a triplet. So we don't want to hear a lazy triplet, we really want it to be a very precise rhythm. The downbeat of measure 10 looks a little bit confusing. I don't know about you, but I see a grace note there, and we normally would play a grace note figure like this. But that's not how we're going to play this one. During the time of Carl Philipp Emanuel Bach, Mozart, and even some late Johann Sebastian Bach, case in point right here, that is actually how an appoggiatura was notated. An appoggiatura is simply a non-harmonic tone, and it helps us to remember to sort of bring out that downbeat. It doesn't really match the harmony, which is what makes it the more interesting note. So, simply put, you are simply going to play that rhythm like 4 equal 16th notes. That's it. Very simple. Just play them like 4 equal 16th notes. In measure 11, you have a trill from B flat to A flat. And I do say from B flat to A flat because trills of the music of this period should always be started on the upper note. That is a stylistic way of playing the music of the Baroque. So you're going to start on your B flat and then end the trill on your A flat like this. Another note too, there is a breath marked in measure 10. See if you can do it without taking that breath. The breath is a little bit on the awkward side, and if you can do the entire phrase in one breath, that's great. If you can't, then certainly don't feel bad about using that option. In measures 12 through 14, you want to make sure that you are playing those eighth notes very smoothly. Also, the lower B flat should be a little bit fuller sounding than the upper B flat. I also like to taper at the end of the E flat going into the D on the downbeat of measure 14. Measures 15 through 17 have a really nice sequence, and you may have a little bit of a difficulty trying to decide where you want to take your breaths. This is what I usually do. So you'll notice that I was taking a breath after the 8th note downbeat on the following measure. Sometimes we could do it this way. So there I was just taking the breath right after the 3rd beat. Talk with your teacher to find out which option is best for you. At the end of measure 17, then we have a little bit of a dilemma. If we're going to breathe after the first 8th note of every measure in the sequence of measures 15 through 17, then we should actually breathe after the first 16th note of measure 18. But this also can be a little bit awkward. Sometimes I like to breathe on the bar line between measures 17 and 18, and sometimes I actually do breathe right after the first 16th note of measure 18. Again, it's a personal choice, so try to figure out which option is best for you. In measures 18 and 19, we have a lovely sequence, and you'll also notice the word crescendo in measure 18. Please note that the word crescendo means gradually getting louder, not all of a sudden. When making my crescendo, I like to use beat 2, beat 4, and then again in measure 19, beat 2 again, to sort of propel my crescendo forward. Kind of like this. In measure 19 and in measure 20, you have those sort of big announcements right up to B flat. Sing. Don't be afraid of those notes. You've just made a beautiful crescendo from the beginning of measure 18. Let's really earn that crescendo by making that big announcement right up to the high B flat, like this. Don't be afraid of that. It's a beautiful note. Sing it out. In measure 21, let's make a contrast between the two different articulations. You have staccatos and you have some smoother notes. I also like to clip the ends of the slurs. It gives it a very graceful sound. In measure 22, there is a slight discrepancy in the articulation. On beat 1, your 16th notes do not have staccato marks over them, but they do have them in beat 3. I think you ought to keep those staccato. Also, just make sure with all of the staccatos in this piece that you're not too short on them. Give the note enough time to sound. And then in measure 23, we have this big, beautiful, long slur. So make it, again, a very big contrast to the shortness of the notes in measure 22. At the beginning of measure 24, that B flat has a little staccato over it. Kind of use that almost like you're jumping on a little trampoline into the and of 1 on that second B flat. Also, in measure 23, as you're doing that big long slur, keep your energy moving to the downbeat of measure 24. In measure 24, it's almost like a smorgasbord of articulations. Make sure that you are observing them. You're playing from this edition for your region's audition, and so you want to make sure that you are really following what is on the page. I cannot stress that enough. Paying close attention to little details is what gives you a very good audition experience. Measure 25 is the home stretch of this whole section. Don't let it fade away. You really want to keep the energy going all the way through the downbeat of letter B, kind of like this. The end of measure 25 has the indication to play broadly. So you're going to use a nice, almost like a wide articulation. If you were a string player, you'd be using very long bows in order to do that. I also would recommend a breath after the D on beat 3. That will help you set up your trill, which, you guessed it, starts on your upper note. Another really important thing to remember is that the downbeat of measure 26 is not the ending of the piece. Don't let the energy of that note die away. The music is continuing on even though you don't have anything to play for the next several measures. I hope you've enjoyed video 2. Video 3 will be focusing on measures 32 through 53. I hope you found value in this. Please shout out any appropriate comments or questions below, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe. The next video will be out next Friday, and until then, keep practicing.